Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me. This is Betsy from The Greetery. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create this beautiful Easter card using some of the new products from our Bunnies and Bows collection. So let's get to it. Like I said, we're going to be putting together this pretty Easter card. This is a book-themed card, uses our previously released Have a Spine die, and it also features a fun vellum insert that has this pretty sheet music stamped onto it, and which you can see through this window in the front. So let's go ahead and see how this is put together. First of all, just a quick look at the products that I'll be using in this video. First of all, the base of our card is done using our previously released Have a Spine die. We're also going to be using some new products from our Bunnies and Bows collection. We are going to be using the Hymn Sing Easter Refrain mini stamp set. We'll be using the Spring Crest. I've previously stamped this out in another video, so you can be on the lookout for that. I'll link it in the description below and the coordinating die for that. We're also going to be using the Hymn Sing Christ the Lord is Risen red rubber stamp. So I have die cut all of my pieces ahead of time off screen, and these were all cut using the Have a Spine die. If you want more detailed information on how the die cutting for this set works, I will link a video in the description below. So I have die cut a very pale pink cover. I have die cut a white cover, a vellum cover, a yellow spine, and then a gold page detail. These were all cut using the Have a Spine die. I have also already stamped and die cut a Spring Crest frame, and I will link the video for this stamping in the description as well. So with all of that prep work already done, we can go ahead and get to doing some stamping and assembling. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the vellum cover that I have cut with my Have a Spine die, and you'll see there's a scored line here. That's the spine of our book card. And so I'm going to be stamping the Christ the Lord is Risen sheet music image and onto this vellum piece, and I'm going to center it in the area to the right of that scored line. So I'm just going to go ahead and position this in my MISTI. Sure that's nice and straight, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. I'm going to rub over my vellum with an embossing buddy so that I don't have any stray embossing powder particles where I don't want them. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that's nice and tight in my corner and ink up my stamp with some Versamark. And then we'll heat emboss that with some gold powder. To use the red rubber stamp, I have removed the foam mat from my MISTI because the rubber stamp has a foam backing on it already. Go ahead and coat that with the embossing powder. And then we can go ahead and heat that with the heat gun. There we have some beautifully embossed gold sheet music of one of my favorite Easter hymns. Next, we're going to go ahead and stamp some sentiments on the cover of our book card. So I have my Spring Crest image laid out here on my cover so that I can get an idea of positioning. I'm going to be using some sentiments from the Hymn Sing Easter Refrain. I'm going to be using this curved Christ the Lord is Risen Today sentiment so that we can position that right above this pretty Spring Crest lily frame. Position that so it's centered in the area to the right of the scored line. Again, we don't want to factor in this spine area into our design because that is going to get glued together to assemble our card. So I'm going to center everything over in that panel area. I'm going to also be using this "he is not here, he has risen," just as he said sentiment along the bottom. And again, just center that and make sure it's nice and straight. And I just have my lily frame laying there so that I can get an idea for positioning. So I'm going to use my Misty to stamp both of these at the same time. Just going to again use some Versamark ink as well as gold embossing powder. I'll just go ahead and hit this with my embossing buddy little pad here to avoid getting embossing powder where I don't want it. And stamp those sentiments. And I'll go ahead and heat emboss those. So next we're going to cut a window in the front of this card, in the center of the Spring Crest frame. The Spring Crest die is in two separate pieces so that you can use it to cut the frame, you can use it to cut just the inside of the frame or just the outside. So I'm going to position this stamped and die cut frame where I want it on my card front, and then drop just the interior cut from the frame inside that die cut, right in position. And I'm going to leave that in place, make sure everything is nice and straight, and then use a little bit of washi tape to secure that in place and run it through my machine. I did not glue down the Spring Crest frame because I want to pop that up with some foam tape later. So I just have it temporarily taped in place. So I'll go ahead and run that through my die cut machine and be right back. Okay, so I'm back and we've die cut that window from the front. And we have our spring frame, which is, we're going to pop out of the die here. And then I'm just going to add this to my card front with some foam tape. Be really careful that I don't tear it with the washi tape. That off of there, okay. And we're just gonna pop that up with some foam tape. I'm going to cut some super narrow pieces for the bottom part of the frame. So there's our cover with that pretty window cut out in the front. Before we put everything together, I'm going to do just a little bit more stamping and heat embossing. I'm going to do a couple sentiments. I'm going to stamp this Happy Easter from the Hymn Sing Easter Refrain stamp set along the spine, and I'm going to stamp a Happy Easter from the Spring Crest set on the back panel, the white die cut panel for our card. For our book card. So I'm going to use again just the Versamark ink and gold embossing powder. This Happy Easter is going to go right here along the spine of our book. And this pretty script Happy Easter is going to go in the center of this back panel for our book card. And I'll just go ahead and heat emboss those. So now that we have all of our beautiful elements all ready to go, we can put it all together. So I'm going to assemble this for you. I'm going to be using a combination of double-sided tape and my precision glue press. Some liquid glue in there. So I'm gonna go start by putting a strip of score tape, double-sided adhesive tape along this page detail from the Have a Spine. I have this cut from a kind of a metallic, vintage metallic gold cardstock, and I'm going to add that to my Have a Spine base. I need to separate that little connecting point. So I'm going to take a scissors and just do that a minute. I should have done that before I put my adhesive on. This little connecting point just needs to be snipped apart so that you can slip the page detail underneath there. And then just line up the top edge of that die cut with the top edge of this bottom piece, just like that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to layer all of our pieces. So we have our back solid piece where we stamped our sentiment, we have our vellum insert, and then our covers. So all of these need to get adhered together along this spine. So you can use either some double-sided tape to do this or a little bit of a liquid adhesive. I personally like to use liquid adhesive here. It just gives me a little more leeway in lining everything up. If you use that double-sided tape, once that goes down, there's no really no way to adjust it if you just need to kind of straighten it a little bit or adjust it a little bit. Makes it a little bit harder if you're using double-sided tape. So for this step, I just prefer liquid adhesive. And before we add the spine part, we can kind of fold on that scored line. Okay, and then we're going to add this to the spine detail. Again, I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive here. I'm going to put liquid adhesive on the top portion of the page detail, and then also on the spine portion of our cover. This just gets slipped underneath. Line the edge of the spine up with the edge of that scored detail. Make sure everything's nice and straight along the bottom. This is why I like liquid adhesive for this part, because it just gives you a little more leeway. And there you go. There is our pretty Easter card inspired by one of my favorite Easter hymns. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody. The new products showcased in this video are part of our Bunnies and Bows Spring 2025 collection. This new collection will be available in the shop at thegreetery.com beginning on Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon.